Hi guys, and welcome to today's screencast for the sports performer in action. Right, okay, so the task is know about the short-term responses and long-term adaptations of the body systems to exercise. Now, over the past couple of weeks we've covered all the short-term responses, so the musculoskeletal responses and the cardiorespiratory responses to short-term exercise. So what I want you to do now is I want you to go onto Moodle and open up the Word document which is titled Short-Term Effects Task. What will come up is this paper here. Now, you've already done the short-term effects of exercise on the musculoskeletal system on another document. Some of you may have finished it, others of you may have not finished. Okay, so what I want you to do today is transfer, so copy and paste what you've already done into these sections. So under each one, where you've written about each one. Once you have done the short-term effects of the musculoskeletal system, you're going to move on to the short-term effects of exercise on the cardiorespiratory system and finish that off. We did the first 3 or 4, 2 weeks ago. We did the last 3 last week. So what we need to do is, for your assignment, for the merit, you need to explain each one of these points that are underlined for musculoskeletal and cardiorespiratory. So if I'm going to help you out, we'll just talk about an increased range of movement in the joints. So when you're explaining, you have to go into a bit more detail and potentially give examples of why this is good for the sports performer. So you have a range of articles and resources on Moodle that will help you out. For example, the short-term effects of exercise on the musculoskeletal and cardiorespiratory system PDF, which is the textbook, that will help you. So if you're going to explain an increased range of movement in the joints, what you may say is that during exercise, our blood flow and muscle temperature start to increase. This is because our heart rate has increased, so therefore we're pumping more blood around the body and our heart is working harder. Okay, so the blood flow also changes because of the fact that our muscles need more oxygen, and then you may talk about the redistribution of blood, so from the organs to the actual muscles. Our temperature increases because we need energy, and using up energy produces heat. So that is why our temperature increases. So our muscles get warmer because blood is being pumped to them at a faster rate. As the muscles warm, they become more pliable, i.e. more elastic, more movement is allowed in them. This combined with increased level of synovial fluid in the joints means an increased range of movement. An increased range of movement is good because it will prevent the risk of injury, such as a strain. Okay, and that is how you're explaining. So as you're explaining the increased range of movement in the joints. When you're coming on to micro tears, which is quite a small section, you still need to give a bit more detail. So you'll explain that from resistance exercise, such as free weight training in a gym, um, you're going to get micro tears within your muscle. This happens to stimulate growth, i.e. to stimulate your muscles rebuilding, so your muscles build bigger and stronger. This is important for a sports performer because they're going to be stronger, more effective within their sport. For example, a rugby player would be able to make a tackle and stop a bigger opponent if they are stronger and have bigger muscles. Okay, so what I want you to do is go through each one of these, explain in detail, give examples of why it's beneficial. That is the main task today for every single one of these. Like I said, we've done a lot in class, so a lot of you should already have quite a lot of this information done. Perhaps you may need to add to it, but I want you to copy and paste it into this document. That's what I want you to do. So if you actually complete that today, you've got an extension task. Now for your assignment, there's a distinction task on this. Now we'll go over this in more detail in class with everyone, but you can get a head start on this and hopefully actually achieve some of this today. So using 3 different sports activities, compare and contrast how the musculoskeletal and cardiorespiratory system respond and adapt to exercise. So all we're talking about now is actually the responses, because we haven't done the adaptations yet. We're just focusing on the responses of the musculoskeletal system and cardiorespiratory system when it comes to exercise. The 3 sports we're going to choose is a weightlifter, a marathon runner, and a rugby player. Essentially because these are very different sports that require different effects due to the exercise. So I want you to open and complete the worksheet on Moodle for this as well. And if I scroll left, I'll show you what it looks like. So it looks like this. So what you're going to do, first of all, is I want you just to list which short-term adaptations are most relevant for each of the sports. So for a weightlifter, out of these ones, which ones are most relevant? So if we go down to the cardiorespiratory system, which is the heart and lungs, you are going to get an increased heart rate and blood flow. You are going to get an increased breathing rate. However, they aren't going to be as vital for a weightlifter as they are for a marathon runner. When it comes to a marathon runner, cardiorespiratory section, you're going to get an increased heart rate, blood flow, increased breathing rate, sweat production, redistribution of blood flow. You're going to get all of these for cardiorespiratory because essentially, when it comes to marathon running, you're using oxygen for energy. When it comes to comparing and contrasting, comparing is similarities and contrasting is differences. So you could potentially start off by saying all of the athletes are going to get a change with all of these. However, some are going to have larger changes than others. For example, increased heart rate and blood flow. A weightlifter will get an increased heart rate and blood flow. However, they're resting regularly. After about 30 seconds, they're going to be resting for a bit. So their increased heart rate will be quite steady. However, a marathon runner who's exercising over a long period of time is going to have that increased heart rate much higher, and the blood flow is going to be greater as well because they need to get oxygen to the working muscles and they're running for a long period of time. The one that is quite useful with regards to this and the weightlifter is blood pressure. So during marathon running, our systolic blood pressure increases slightly, our diastolic stays the same. However, for weightlifting, our systolic and diastolic blood pressure increase. This is because during the filling phase, i.e. the diastolic phase, the muscles are bigger during weightlifting because they're actually exercising. So the muscles are bigger, which are putting pressure on the arteries, which means when the heart is filling, there's still pressure within the arteries, meaning there's an increase in blood pressure within the actual artery. So that is what we're doing by comparing and contrasting. Today, all I want you to do is just list which ones you think fit in with the weightlifter, the marathon runner, and the rugby player. And then we'll actually discuss the details of it in more detail next lesson. So for today, if you do that first task, I just want you to come to this and list out of the musculoskeletal responses and the cardiorespiratory which ones will affect each athlete. For example, new bone formation is not going to affect the marathon runner compared to how it's going to affect the weightlifter. A weightlifter will get a large increase of new bone formation. They'll also get a large increase of micro tears in muscle fibers, whereas a marathoner will not. Okay, so thank you for listening, and that's what I want you to do today.